There's a neat thing you can do in Resident Evil games ever since Resident Evil Village that I don't see that many people talk about. So, in 2007, Resident Evil 4 was ported to the Wii. That version allowed you to aim with the Wiimote, making headshots incredibly easy. You essentially had a hit-scan weapon that allowed you to headshot enemies even at a great distance. And since Resident Evil 8, that's what the motion sensor function allows you to do. But there are some huge problems with this feature that I will get to later. But first, let me just show you how cool this feature is when it's working properly. This is called Gyro Aiming, and I'm not using it all the time. Only when I press the aim button, so it's completely non-intrusive. I am incredibly rusty at Resident Evil games, so I'm still getting used to the controls, but with this side by side, the difference in speed and precision is pretty clear, I think. Like, with the amount of time I've taken to kill 1 or 2 zombies using the right stick, I've already put down 4 or 5 with Gyro. I know it might sound weird, but playing with Gyro is not all that difficult. Actually, you are supposed to use Gyro alongside the right stick, so it's much more intuitive than you think. Besides, Resident Evil games are great games to learn how to use Gyro, especially because in most of them, you need to stand still and then shoot, so you can just focus on that. Not only that, but these are great games, like in general, you wouldn't have a bad time playing them anyway. You can make the argument that just like the Wii version of Resident Evil 4, this trivializes combat, but like, so does playing with a keyboard and mouse, because the truth is, I'm just emulating a mouse. And here comes the problems that I mentioned. I am not using the native version of these features, like the ones you can enable in the settings of the game, because for some reason, the motion sensor function in these games is incredibly inconsistent and almost unusable in some cases. Let me explain. Gyro works best when emulating a mouse. This makes sense because the mouse follows your movements, and so does Gyro. But for some reason, Resident Evil games insist on using Gyro emulating the right stick. So you end up with dead zones, you aim drags across the screen, and you can't do fast movements, which kind of defeats the point of having Gyro in the first place. And the funniest part is that Capcom get this feature right on every other game that isn't Resident Evil. On Monster Hunter Rise, it works really well, both on PlayStation and on Nintendo Switch. Dragon's Dogma 2 works even better than Monster Hunter Rise on PC and PS5. Monster Hunter Wilds, same thing, works flawless. But on Resident Evil 8 emulates the right stick and the sensitivity is way too slow. Resident Evil 4 Remake, when Gyro is active, you can use the right stick to look up and down. The sensitivity is way too slow, and it's also emulating the right stick. Resident Evil 7 received this feature many years after release, but only on the cloud version for the first Nintendo Switch. And now on Resident Evil 9, this feature is available on the Switch 2 and PS5, but not on PC. So I can't even report to you guys if it's any good or not. Though this guy on Reddit said it's pretty good. I don't know who is responsible for this, but come on, you already have a great implementation on the same engine. Is it that hard to just port those implementations to other games? And the director knows that gyro aiming is goated because he specifically highlighted that gyro aiming was added to Resident Evil 9 instead of the mouse mode on the Switch 2, because that's the feature that people actually want to use, so what the heck? It doesn't make a lot of sense. But in any case, if you're playing Resident Evil games on your Steam Deck or on PC with a controller, I left a link in the description with instructions on how to use Steam and any gyro-compatible controller to play Resident Evil games with proper, precise and responsive gyro aiming. Like I said, this works with every controller compatible with gyro, including the future Steam controller, and it's a lot of fun to use. Anyway, is this your first time hearing about gyro aiming, or have you used it before? Leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching.